Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Anyways, okay, this is our memory. I'm going to talk to the mic here. This is our memory of John and Eppie Green. Okay, we came back to Lebanon in 77 with 3 little girls. Our oldest was 10 and our youngest was 6. And we met John Green through the University Church. He was the pastor. Mm-hmm. And in those days, we had a lot of overseas workers, expatriates, people coming from all over the place, from Europe, from America, because Middle East University in those days was a very active place. This was just after the war had, we thought the war is finished, so all these workers came in. John will remember Harold and Gisela Zinner, and they had 3 little girls and many people at that time. Anyways,
But I thought they were there before you came.
Maybe a little bit before
Okay.
we came. But we all came kind of around the same time, 75, 76, 77, because the war was supposed to be over. Well, unbeknown to us, the war was not over. And so John would go, the city was divided. We called it the Green Line. And so half the city was on the Christian side and half was the Muslim side.
They named it after my father, the Green Line.
The Green Line, yes. And so John would go over to the west side, Ras Beirut, Hamra actually, and he would go around to different offices and he would give out signs of the times. John, I hope I'm getting this right, but this is how I remember it. And he would give out signs of the times. And he came to this one doctor's office and he met a lady by the name of Huda. Now Huda had been Druze, which is kind of I'm going to say a mixture, kind of a secret religion, more to the Muslim side. He met Sister Huda, who had converted to Christianity. She had become a Christian in some village up in the, kind of a Baptist Christian, but she took the signs of the time that your dad offered her. So here's an interest now. If somebody takes a Christian magazine in Ras Beirut, you pay attention. So I think that about that time, you folks, the Green family was leaving. You were going back to America. Because we didn't know your family very long because you left shortly after we came.
Okay.
That's why we don't, the kids didn't grow up together. You're our kids and you guys. So, because our kids are all about the same age as you. Our oldest is 52, 47, 48, and so on. Anyways, he put us in touch with Sister Huda. He said, I want you, Roses, I want you to follow up on this lady. She has an interest. Mm-hmm. Great. We were new to Lebanon. Who are we going to find to kind of reach out to? So we followed up. We went over to Ras Beirut, which was a little distance, and took our 3 little girls. And we started, in Sister Huda's home, we started a Bible story hour. She was a lovely lady. And she had a 100-year-old mother, her mother living there, and she had a son who was a little bit shell-shocked. He had been in the war in Syria, and he was not normal, kind of doing strange things and, would be turn against his mother, but he lived with her. So they all lived in this little apartment, and we started a Bible story hour in Sister Huda's home. Invite the kids in the neighborhood, all the little Druze kids, Muslim kids, and we would, in those days we just had a slide projector. We'd show it on the wall, and then story of Abraham. These are stories that the Muslims would accept, and whatever else, Daniel, whatever. And then the kids would color and so we could involve our girls, because they would turn the slide projector and things like that, and then they would color a picture. We teach them to brush their teeth and, all kinds of things. So our friendship with Huda really grew. And we became very close. Like we always called her our mother in Lebanon. And then of course, we'd start inviting her to church. And we didn't go to the university church. We were kind of the odd ones out because we wanted to mingle with the nationals. And so we went to the Ashrafia church. And John, you'll remember the Ashrafia church right there on the Green Line, right by the museum. And so that's where we went, and it was all in Arabic, but they would translate for us.
So did you learn Arabic?
Oh, a little bit. We got by. Everybody wanted to learn English, And So then we started bringing Sister Huda to the Ashrafia church because it was Arabic. And by and by she decided she wanted to be baptized. And that was we were so happy for that. In the Ashrafia church, it was Brother Raful. John, you'll remember Brother Raful. He was the pastor in the Ashrafia church. And you know, I still remember Sister Martha. She was one of the Lebanese ladies. But her village, when she was younger, when she was just newly married, the Druze came into that village and there was fighting, whatever, and her husband was killed by the Druze. So she had a real prejudice against the Druze people, which is understandable. But now you're a Christian, you let those things go. But she didn't. And so Sister Huda would come to the church and Sister Martha would just snub her. And just, somebody was taking her home in their car, she'd be sitting in her car waiting to go home after church, and Sister Huda, the friendliest lady you could imagine, would smile at her and want to shake her hand. Sister Martha would put her nose in the air. I'm not having anything to do with you. You know, that was her attitude.
Wow.
But in spite of that, Sister Huda got baptized. And our little Bible study group continued, and we became a part of that family to the extent that we were like her. We were the same age probably, but she seemed older, you know. And then this Sammy, this son that had these mental problems, it was time for him to get married. By this time he was in his early 30s. Where are you going to find a wife for Sammy? So then she started looking up in the village of Aramun, which is where she came from originally. She started looking around and she found a girl, Dunya, who was quite a bit younger, just a young girl, probably 19, and she agreed to marry the family. She met the family. Who's now Huda's family to go and help negotiate? The Roses. So we would go up to the Aramun, to the mountains there, and we would meet with this family and agree on a kind of a bride price, I guess you'd say, or whatever.
So
and
you did that?
With her, yeah. But we were there. We were kind of witnesses to all this.
What an amazing cultural experience for you.
Oh yeah. We had many of those kinds of
Did you
experiences.
chip in and say, no, let's go up a little bit?
No. We were
in the back room.
Listen, we were just happy to find a wife for Sammy, you know. So then the wedding, the engagement, of course, and she was I remember this vividly. I mean, I haven't thought of this probably in 40 years.
You seem to have a very good memory.
But this was a big thing in our lives at the time, you know. And she had a big red dress on and da-da-da. That was the engagement. And the wedding followed pretty, right on the heels of the engagement, as I remember. And so they got married, Sammy and Dunya. And they moved in with Huda in this little apartment. Had the living room, the sitting room about like this, couches all the way around. We knew that place well because we'd go there every week for Bible story hour. And then they all slept there. They all just rolled out their mats and slept there. And then a little room off, kind of, I guess you'd call it a bedroom, and then a little hole-in-the-wall kitchen. And that's how they lived. Huda, her old mother, 100-year-old mother, we figure, and Sammy and Dunya, and then the children started coming. So, of course, 9 months later, you're going to have a child. And I still remember, now I don't know if I should even record this because this is a little bit, it's so important that the girl be a virgin. You've got to be a virgin. And so the custom, and I'm sure it's changed over the years, they would in the villages they would still do this, but the day after the wedding was consummated, they had to have proof of her virginity. So he would come out, and this happened with Sammy, so I'm only telling you what happened.
Yeah.
And all the family or the neighbors gathered together now to have the evidence shown, a little cloth, and it had to have blood on it and so on, to prove that she was a virgin.
That's wild. It is just so...
It sounds crazy, but that was the custom. That was the custom.
Amazing.
So 9 months later, little Maha was born, the first little girl. Big ears like this, her ears stuck out. but a sweet little baby, and then Walid, then Fadi, then Rena, then twins, Dalal and whatever. And so it ended up there were 8 children
Really?
in the family.
Wow.
And through this all, we're there. Every
They
time
live in
I-
that house? Or
Pardon?
they moved to their own house?
No, they all lived in there. They all lived there. When we left in '84 because of the war, we didn't know if we were going to see them again. We said goodbye to Huda as if we're not going to see her. We didn't know if we'd ever see her again. And Sammy, we didn't know, but of course he stayed in that house. And they had a little house up in the mountains, a little, very humble little house, whitewashed walls and so on, a little garden. And so they had a place to go. Everybody has a little place in the mountains.
Really?
Yeah, even if you're poor.
Why not?
If you have to get away in summer, it's so hot, you get away to your little mountain house. And so they had a little house, very humble though, and they would go up there. Well, as it turned out, in '84 then, we were evacuated to Cyprus because the war had gotten so, they took us out in a cattle boat. That's all they could get at the time. Jerry Karst, does that name ring a bell? He was at the GC. Anyways, he was our president, and he said, no, yeah, Jerry Karst, Jerry and Verna Karst. And so all the expatriate workers left to Cyprus. We finished out the school year, but then we just left our home. We had a nice apartment. We had to leave everything. And so now the war had settled down by that time. So we went back, left our girls in Cyprus. We went back to sell our things, to give our things away, pack up what we were taking home.
Was this an internal war? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
like overturning
Like
the
the
government?
Syrian
Civil
militia.
war.
It was a
Religious
civil war.
based.
Yeah. This guy probably knows more than.
No, I just watch TV.
No,
Yeah.
no.
But he knows. At
Oh,
least
yeah, he
you
knows,
understand
he
the
knows.
situation.
Yeah, I went
you
to
see.
school with some Maronite
Yeah.
people from Lebanon, and I
Yeah.
learned from them what the issues were. It didn't make any sense to me, but they didn't like each other.
Yeah, the Christian, most of the Christians, the few Christians in Lebanon were Maronite, which is a Catholic, kind of a Catholic background, I guess.
So when
you'd
did
say.
the American Marines got blown up?
Oh, we were there. I saw it
Yeah.
happen. I saw it happen.
That was in '81?
That was about in '81, '82.
What happened?
Okay,
352 Marines got blown up in their barracks.
Yeah.
and we were up on the hill. Middle East College is right up on a hill, and you look down over the
That's
city
a
of
terrible
Beirut.
tragedy.
Yeah.
And all the Mediterranean. It's a beautiful country, really. And so the college is situated up on this hill, and you look down and you see the blue Mediterranean, and then you see the city
Yeah,
of
Lebanon was
Beirut.
supposed to be really, really pretty.
Oh,
place.
well, they called it the Paris of the Middle East before the war. And so we were up there at Tom and Karen Staples' place. Your dad would know that couple. And we're standing outside in the yard, standing outside in the driveway, and suddenly we hear this huge explosion. Now that's some kilometers down in the city, off to the city, beside the city there, and we see this big plume of smoke, like huge, and we said, oh, something happened. And then of course hours later we heard that this army barracks had been blown up, and 200 and some, I don't even remember.
Yeah, 352.
352. Anyways, a
So
huge
did the
amount.
U.S. retaliate, or what happened?
I can't
I don't
remember.
know.
I can't remember. But that's the kind of
They closed the
situation we
Marine
were in.
presence. They got them all out. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't think. And afterwards, that place still had war.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
That was
Israel
just.
went into the
That's
country.
right. That was just about the time the Israeli planes came in, and so and you just reminded me of something else. Then during that time we couldn't get over to West Beirut because of this conflict. Now the Israelis were involved, and so we didn't see Sister Huda. Our little Bible story hour was put on hold. We didn't know if we'd ever resume. And then when we finally got together with her again, we found out that during that invasion by the Israelis, they struck anywhere, randomly, bombs dropped, whatever. And Sister Huda, there was a little lane leading up to her apartment, and you go up a few stairs, you know, to her, because they are all very poor buildings and so on. And a bomb landed right in that alleyway leading up to her place, and several of those little kids that we had, you know, befriended and gotten to know, they were killed, like blown. They found pieces of their flesh, their body on that wall, brick wall. It was very sad. They were running to the bomb shelter, and this bomb landed, and they were killed. Anyways, after we were evacuated,
We have no idea, you know.
oh yeah, oh my, we went back to settle our furniture, to do it, because now we're going to go home. They're going to send us back to Canada. And so we saw Sister Huda again. We saw Sammy and Dunya. When we left, I think they had 4 or 5 children. By now they had 7 children. And we said goodbye because we knew we were going home. We said, and she used to say, Inshallah, one day we're going to meet in heaven. We're going to meet under a certain tree, and we're going to see you. I forget how she called it. She had a certain name for it. Anyways, and if that didn't happen, because then we didn't hear, we went back to Canada. How do you communicate, especially during the war? There was no way we could communicate. And then we heard through somebody that a bomb had hit their apartment, and she was killed.
Oh,
she was killed.
So sad.
But we're going to see her again. She was a
sad,
beautiful
you know,
Christian. We're going to see
the
Sister
horrors
Huda
that these
again.
people have
Yeah.
lived.
But Sammy, he survived. Sammy and Dunya and the children, and they rebuilt. That apartment was destroyed, literally destroyed in that war, in that bombing. But they rebuilt, and we went back then because our daughter lived there. That's another thread of the story. It's a big story, but we're almost finished. Anyways, Pam went.
Fascinating story.
Pam went back for after her second year.
Weather.
Flash flooding.
Oh, that's flash. Yeah. Oh, I'm not used to that.
It's not that bad.
Okay, I'm not used to that. Pam finished 2 years of college back in Canada at Burman, and then she had a hankering to study at Newbold. That's our middle daughter. She's our adopted daughter, actually.
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, and we got her when she was like a week old, so she's ours. Anyways, she on her way to Newbold, she decided to go to Egypt because they were having a big youth congress for the Middle East, and so here she met all these kids that she had grown up with. And they said, well, Pam, why are you going to Newbold? Come to Middle East University.
Oh.
So she phoned home and renegotiated. Okay, Pam, if you're going to go to Middle East University, okay. So she's going back to the place now where she grew up, or spent 7 years of her life. And she went back there. She finished her last 2 years. She was taking business. And she met, do you remember the Manassians?
Yeah.
Okay, Armo Manassian, he was older than her, and he actually taught for us at BOS, at Beirut Overseas School.
Okay.
And so now he's actually teaching. He's a professor at Middle East University, and she comes there as a college student. So they fall in love, and so they decided we're going to get married. And so that was back in the early 90s, 92, 93. And so we went back. We had been gone 9 years, 8-9 years. So we went back for the wedding, and they got married there at Middle East University.
One of your girls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So she ended up she graduated from there, and then they got married.
So
you know.
where does she live now?
Oh, that's another story. That's another thread of the story. Anyways, we went back after I told you Sister Huda was killed in this fighting, and so we thought that's the end of the story. But Sammy and Dunya, Sammy now has straightened around, and his children were beautiful children. They were beautiful children. 8 children, I can't remember now if it was 9, 8 children. So of course with Pam and Armo living in the Middle East, now we have an excuse to go back to Lebanon.
Yeah.
So we would go back to visit. And then we ended up, but in the meantime, they had come back to Canada, to Calgary, And Armo, the union, sponsored him to get his doctorate in international marketing or whatever. And so they were 4 years, and their children, their 2 children, were born in Calgary, Canada. So then they went back because they were under the union to complete some years, in exchange for his doctorate, for his studies. So they ended up staying there, and so we ended up in Egypt. After 15 years, we ended up in Egypt. So Egypt is just an hour away.
What were you
flight.
doing? Like what?
Teaching.
Teaching.
Dwight was
Both you and your
principal.
husband were teaching?
Yeah, I was doing the ESL,
Okay.
and Dwight was principal and Bible teacher and whatever else,
That's what you did in the Middle East, was teaching?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And Beirut Overseas School, the Lord.
How many years did you spend there?
7 in Lebanon. So then in '99, then we went back to the Middle East. 3 times we said no, we can't go back anymore. No. And then the call came again, and we said no, my mother, my you have excuses. Then we had grandchildren, whatever. So
Right.
finally, the 3rd time we said, okay, God must be trying to hit us over the head. And how that all happened. So we said yes. That was in May. They really were desperate for somebody. The school was sinking in Egypt, and they were going to close the school. They announced, we don't have the students, we don't have the money, and so now we're stepping into this. Johnny Manassian was the educational superintendent, and he was a good friend because he's now our daughter's father-in-law, etc. And so we said, okay. So we said, Lord, we're going to go. We took a week, and Dwight said, we won't talk about this, and we'll just pray, and we'll see what God comes up with. And by the 2nd or 3rd day, 4 days, we both said, yes, we have to go. We didn't want to go to leave our children, but then we said, okay, we're going to go. And I said this to Cassie the other day. I said, at the time, I thought, okay, Jesus is going to come during the time that we're in Egypt, because Earth's history is closing down, and who knows, we're giving our life to Egypt. But here, that was 10 years ago already, and we're still here.
So how long did you go by that time?
10 years.
Wow.
In Egypt, we were 10 years. But then, as I said, we would go across to Lebanon, Christmas, or they would come, and so we saw Pam quite a bit, more than we saw the other girls who were back home here. And then during that time, the story. Am I boring you now?
No,
Because
no,
I'm
very interesting.
this. I could go on. It's coming to a close, I
It's
think.
especially fascinating for me, of course.
Well, for you it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. Very
Okay.
nice for us too.
Anyways, then one time, the fighting. Lebanon was pretty peaceful during those years then. But we'd keep going back, and of course, that was kind of special for us. Well, then Pam and Armo, by this time they had 2 children. They were both in school. Dylan was grade 1, 2, 3, whatever. No, he was old. They were older than that. But anyways, it was on Valentine's Day, and so they went out for lunch. I'm trying to piece together. They went out for lunch to the Phoenicia Hotel in Lebanon. This is right on the Corniche. A big hotel, very famous hotel where all the dignitaries stay, whatever. And so they had gone out for lunch, and they're sitting there, nicely, big plate, glass window, and Mediterranean is just over the road, and it's very lovely, beautiful. Really, Lebanon is a beautiful place. We still love it, and we love Lebanese food, we love Lebanese people, we love Lebanon. And they're sitting there, and then unbeknown to them, coming along that Corniche, we call it, that road leading down to the Mediterranean and along, there is Rafik Hariri. He was the prime minister. I think he was the former prime minister. I can't remember, but he rebuilt Beirut actually after the war. Very wealthy businessman, whatever, and he was in the government, but I can't remember the parts that they played. Anyways, he and his cavalcade of cars was coming by that hotel, just, as they were sitting there and eating and so on. Well, at that moment, the Syrians, I guess it would be, detonated a bomb. And this huge bomb went off, and he and I think 15 of his bodyguards, 15 of his bodyguards were all killed. It was a huge bomb, like it left a crater in the ground, you know, and that was like 75 meters away. Oh, very close. I'm going to say like from here to barely, just maybe across the street, not even. And so all this plate glass now comes showering down. Pam and Armo are sitting right there. Armo's sitting sideways, Pam's sitting this way. And luckily it was like this glass that's, you know, kind of splinters up, cracks up. And if it had been shards, you know, like coming down without that safety glass, they would have been killed. But this way they just got the glass coming down on them. So what, you know, now here they are, and of course people screaming and windows blown out for a kilometer, you know, radius and so on. And so they stumbled out on the street, and blood gushing, and somebody came by and took them. AUB, the hospital, huge big, like a university hospital, was just not far away. And so they got stitched up right in the lobby. There were so many wounded and so many hurt. So they just set up some stations in the lobby of this hospital and started stitching. The doctors came in and started. So she had like over 50 stitches in her face. And Armo had quite a bit. And you can still see, you know, some scars here, but you cover it and so on. Anyways.
And I missed the thread. That was your daughter?
Yeah, that was Pam, who married Armo and who went back. You know, had gone back to
Praise
study.
God for saving their lives.
Oh yeah. Oh my. Oh, we've thanked him many times over and over. So so then we're in Egypt. So they phone and I'm saying hi. You know, Armo's phoning now. I said hi. How's everything going? We hadn't heard about anything yet. He says, well, not so good. And I said, well, what's wrong? Well, we were hit, you know, with this bomb, or we were injured in this explosion. So of course. We quickly made plans, and Dwight got somebody to cover for me, and I went over. So within hours, the next day, I was over there to help them. And then a year later, then they had another little girl. The others were already older. Like Cassie and I are 11 years apart. Okay, Christelle was 11, and then Chloe was born. So Chloe now is. She's going to turn 13 the next month. So this happened 13 years. So it's a long time ago.
Are they still there?
No. Then, so Pam got her master's in the meantime, and Armo ended up being one of her instructors, her husband. And then she worked at the university. She was administrative assistant at the last job at Middle East University. And then they decided, no, they're going to come back to Canada. She really wanted to move, Pam, well, both. They wanted to move back to Canada. But Armo was teaching at American University of Beirut, very famous in the Middle East. It's a very prestigious university and so on. So he taught there for quite a number of years. And then he changed to Lebanese American University. He never had trouble getting a job because he, you know, has a good... it's hard to find doctors of, you know, somebody with a PhD in business. And so that's where they decided they're going to come back. But Armo couldn't find a job because it's hard to, you know, you're going from here and come back to an American university and you're here. And the salary and everything, you know, it's so different. So he stayed there. That's 2 years ago now. He stayed there and they would travel. He would come back every 3-4 months, 2 or 3 times a year, 3 times a year. And Pam, in the meantime, settled in Kelowna, where we live. She wanted to be close to us. And so they rented for a year, and then last year they bought a place, like a townhouse.
So they're close to you.
Mm-hmm. And we have a big university, University of British Columbia. It's a big, and they just 10 years ago, they made a new branch in the Okanagan, where we live. So it's a new university, and it's growing by leaps and bounds. And Pam always hoped that she could get a job there. Well, Armo would have liked to teach there, but it wasn't lucrative enough.
Of course. Where's your other children? Is that your only daughter?
Yeah. No, anyway, she ended up staying there, And the two kids went to the university. They were close, and Chloe's in the church school, close to us, 5 minutes where Dwight taught. And Armo now so they've been doing this for 2 years, traveling back and forth. So now he just recently he said, I don't want to do this anymore, because he's living there alone. She's living here, and so he's gonna, even if he doesn't get a good enough job, I don't know what they're gonna do. So, and then the other kids, Lisa is, you would remember Lisa maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I'm 51.
Okay, she's going to turn 52, so she's 51.
Yeah.
So this
when I turned
in April.
52 in September.
Okay, she in April, so she's 4 months older than you. And she's a teacher, about 5 hours north of us. She teaches now grade 1 kindergarten. She was an English teacher, high school and then after her boys were born, she went to KG and 1, and that's where she is still, and happily married. And then Shauna was our youngest. Now she's going to be 48, so she's younger than you. Is Diana older than you?
She is, yeah. She's 3 years older.
Oh, okay. She was a little older than our kids then. And Shauna's at Loma Linda. She's the children's pastor there at Loma Linda Church.
Really?
Yeah.
You can see her.
So if you
on
see
TV
her.
sometimes.
Yeah.
What is her last name?
Campbell, Shauna Campbell.
She does the children's story.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, she does. She's very busy. She's
Yeah.
very, very,
You
very
can
busy
Google
there.
her.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So we always go down at Christmas or whatever. We always go down to California.
And
And
Cassie, did you all travel much with John up to Canada?
a few times.
The wedding
Yeah.
for your eldest daughter, and
Yeah.
Our mom was alive.
It's a long way. It's a long way.
Yeah, it's not around the corner.
We were in BC. Cassie was in Ohio and in Alabama. It's a long way.
It is a long way.
So I haven't been here, I think twice maybe.
Really?
Yeah, that's all.
It's not around the corner.
So do you have pictures of your family?
Yeah, I do. Oh, since you asked.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll show some pictures. And yeah, that's enough now for